I'm not going to ask the teachers to stand with me for this. They've been on their feet all day teaching. Hello, my name is Scott Howarth. I'm 16 years old, a junior at Arundel High School, and I'm the president of the Chesapeake Regional Association of Student Councils. I swear that never gets old 5 months into this, and I'm still super proud to be the leader of this student body. We are an amazing assembly and a mind-blowing generation. One of the primary features of our school system is the student leadership structure. Through the election of the student board member, we are allowed to actively participate in collective bargaining. This is one of the areas where even the most progressive systems usually don't allow student input. In honor of that special voting right, CRASC will not be taking an official position on the ratification of union contracts. I repeat, we are neutral, Switzerland. Instead, we are here to share a bit about what it's like for students to experience this. In Anne Arundel County today, students can take 26 advanced placement courses. We have close to 600 students duly enrolled in college-level courses working towards their diploma. We have had 8 Gates Millennium Scholars over the past 4 years. Our students fly drones and create smartphone apps. They engineer algae into biofilters, compose symphonies, raise money for causes in developing countries, patent cancer detection methods, lead environmental change, and champion political causes. Our students demonstrate exemplary talents, including the understanding of world issues and the ability to clearly articulate youth perspectives before an otherwise all-adult board. We are able to do all of this because we have been gifted with superlative education. That education has been precariously balanced on the goodwill of the tireless dedication of our teachers. These are the men and women who high-five us first thing in the morning, teach us all day, tolerate our teenager attitudes, tutor us in the afternoon, grade our papers and answer our questions all evening, then get up again the next day to arrive in the building at 6:30. The success of our system and quality of our community rests the bulk of its weight on the back of our teachers. Without them, the whole thing will crumble. As we enter the season of budget, I ask the members of this board and elected officials to take a hard look at the way we spend money. The school system will not fail for lack of Chromebooks or smartboards. We won't struggle with the absence of phys ed textbooks, and everyone can suck it up and wear the same sports uniforms for a few more years. But when the inevitable mass exodus of our faculty leaves us without teachers, what happens? The whole thing goes sideways. I'm asking you all, us all, not to let that happen. I'm so proud to represent my peers, but when I come back to visit in 7 years and talk to the 2022 CRASC officers, I want to be blown away by them and their amazing education. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. One of my coaches, mentors for that matter, once pointed to my school and said, while the things you learn in there are important, what you're going to remember 20 years from now is what happens on this field. Good evening, Anne Arundel County. My name is Jacob Baumgart. Playing left field at Arundel High, the most decorated baseball program in the state. I'm fully aware of the time and effort a successful team is required to put forth, all of which stems from the coaching staff. We know through the knowledge of tribal Africa that it takes an entire village to raise a child. The same holds true for the development of an athletic program. Many teachers of our county volunteer their time outside of the classroom and dedicate it to the playing field. Only through some of this non-contractual work put in by teachers, we are able to have programs such as after-school and summer workouts were accessible to all students. With programs of these likes, student athletes are able to monitor their training, build strength, and condition at consistent and safe rates for their vigorous seasons. As a matter of fact, the University of Washington Orthopedics Department suggests that exercise with aforementioned qualities will decrease the likelihood of stress and overuse related injuries when it comes time for game action. Without the expertise of these teachers and coaches alike and athletic directors, student athletes will have an increased risk for injury due to improper training. Following a decreased amount of assistance from teacher coaches, the quality of play of sports in Anne Arundel County is bound to be lowered. As the level of play is minimized, so is the significance of the games that we play in. For example, senior nights are large events that draw crowds from varying backgrounds across the community, uniting us all. This past year, Arundel Baseball's senior night drew the largest crowd that I've ever seen for a regular season baseball game. We sold plenty of different specialty foods, and that increased a whole bunch of revenue for us personally. Furthermore, on that night, we dedicated our field to a coaching legend, Bernie Walters, with a framed jersey and unveiling of a scoreboard in his name. It was a night to be remembered from members of our community of all ages. And to deprive teachers is not only to deprive and risk the student athletes, it's also to deprive the entire community, a condemnable offense. Thank you.
By the way, that was a great night. I was there.
Good evening. My name is Anna Mellows, and I'm 16 years old. I'm a junior at Arundel High School. There are some lessons that can be taught in a classroom, things like trigonometry and chemistry, and then there are things learned along the way through your experiences. Some of the most memorable high school experiences are through clubs. With the effect of the salary situation, such as work to rule, these enriching clubs will be jeopardized. This is due to the fact that teachers will no longer have to volunteer to advise them as it is not listed in their contracts. The loss of these clubs will have negative consequences. An example of how individuals will suffer if clubs are hindered is the club Best Buddies. Best Buddies is a program where we match individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities in one-to-one friendships to promote social interactions. Without these social interactions, individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities may not have the opportunity to make friends, thus isolating them. In another example, with Work to Rule, there will be no schools to raise money, promote, or organize the Polar Bear Plunge. This means money raised during this event, which goes to Special Olympics, will not exist. In the year 2012, Anne Arundel County raised $146,465 for the Polar Bear Plunge. This money could now be deprived of Special Olympics, which could have a snowball effect of its own. Clubs affect a larger scale of people than one would think. The Polar Bear Plunge is only one example. Clubs such as Interact and Honor Societies, which students dedicate their whole high school careers to, I can vouch for that, reach out to help the community, but will not be able to do that if they cannot run. Among these positive outcomes of clubs is the idea that clubs provide a school with culture and diversity. Looking at the situation from an Arundel High School viewpoint, we have a wide variety of clubs ranging from superhero club to math club to United Cultures. Clubs are a way for students to express themselves and meet others who share their interests. I can personally attest to this, saying the people I have met through my clubs and activities are individuals I may have never spoken to before and could not imagine not knowing now. This affects all types of students, and having this opportunity decreased is damaging to them and could affect their entire future. Thank you.
Good evening.
I just have a quick question. I'm wondering, did you read about the Work to Rule in the newspaper?
No, I learned about it from my school.
From who in your school?
Teachers and students are talking about it.
The teachers were talking about Work to Rule at your school and talking about the impact that it would have?
Everyone is, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Before we start, could I add something to that furthermore? There's actually a lot of students who are getting behind this at our school. We, personally, we have a lot of Arundel students here tonight backing us, and like students are actually taking notice to this. Not just the teachers, the students are actually getting behind this and seeing the effects that it has on the clubs, the sports, and everything. And it does have an effect outside of just the teacher, just outside of the teacher's salaries. It will affect our everyday life.
Yeah, that's fine. There's just some policies about what teachers are allowed to discuss with students about Work to Rule, and that concerns me. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hang on, we got one more question from Mrs. Ritchie.
I just want to clarify a little bit about that, and it has to do with the stipends, because I hear that about the stipends, but, and Dr. Arlotta, maybe you can help me to understand this. I believe that for authorized clubs, teachers sign a contract to participate in that, and they're paid a stipend to do that. Is that correct?
The short answer is that's correct. There are, of course, through the negotiated agreement, there are activities and sports that teachers coach and/or monitor and manage. And then what I think the students are talking about, or will continue to talk about in their passionate way, is there are things that are not part of that negotiated agreement, and there are things that don't have a salary attached to them.
Right.
And I think that's part of what the students are referring to. So you're absolutely right. There are things that are negotiated with regard to coaching and a certain number of clubs that each of the comprehensive high schools can have and that we help fund. And then there are things that teachers do
Right,
well
and
above
I
and beyond that you
understand
well
that.
recognize.
Right.
Certainly, yes, ma'am.
But I
you
just
do.
wanted to understand, because there are certain ones now, some of the ones that are like the polar bear plunge, that is not something, that would definitely be one of those that are kind of affected. But there may be a robotics club that's contracted or something like that. So those should not be affected. But some of the, I guess the more social ones, which is not to.
Well, it is. It really depends on school. Again, the school has a certain number that they are able to.
Okay.
Is the number 10? Yeah, the number's 10 at each of the comprehensive high schools. And different schools have different. One might have a step team, and the other school might not have a step team.
Okay.
Or robotics club, or not a robotics club. And then beyond that, again, what I think the students are referring to are those that are not contracted, and the teachers are. But those that are contracted, there's an expectation they will continue, because that's separate and apart from their duty day.
Right.
As negotiated.
Well, and it would be interesting, and I don't know whether we have that information or we can obtain that information. What other kind of programs are going on in those schools? That's one of the stories we need to tell so that people understand, because a lot of the programs, that are being done that are beyond the 10 that are allowed in the school are things that we need to have a better understanding about.
Oh, no, it's fine. My name is Sarah Smith. I wanted to expand on what Ms. Ritchie talked about earlier with the student impact and what teachers were doing. I'm a senior at Annapolis High School, and I'm in the International Baccalaureate program. And as a student in such a rigorous program, as well as a senior, I could go on about how I feel about teachers rejecting requests for letters of recommendations, given the hard work I put into my studies for the past 4 years. However, my piece in this panel is not about that. Instead, I'm going to backtrack to the reason that we're all here really to begin with is I will begin by asking the simplest question of all is why, ladies and gentlemen, did we become teachers? My mother is a professor, and she could go on for days about why she chose education of all paths laid before her. However, notably, she will say that she did it because she feels a drive to make a difference in people's lives. Many of my teachers have said that they teach because they love it. The recent events, however, showed a displacement in that claim. As a result, students are being affected in more than one way like we all think. My brother recently inquired on obtaining an internship at the NSA. In order to do this, he had to obtain letters of recommendations, and he asked his teachers. Every single teacher that he asked said no. My brother described this experience as not upsetting or infuriating, but rather as heartbreaking and disappointing. He approached his teachers not because he thought that they could write a fantastic recommendation that would land him a spot as an intern at the NSA, but also because he trusted them enough to write about him. When his teacher said no, he described this as knocking over a deck of cards. Teachers spend a year, perhaps even more, creating bonds with their students. Many of these students come to the school as a safe haven to enlighten their minds and interact with adults who believe in their success. When teachers reject a student on the grounds of an issue that they in no way, shape, or form are involved in, it feels demoralizing and deflating. There is absolutely nothing a student can do to refute the issue, and in a way, a student feels helpless. To conclude this, I believe that what has happened between the Board of Education and the Teachers Union is polarizing. I can only describe it as a multivariable equation that, when it began, involved students in no way. However, somewhere along the way, it suddenly did. When such an occurrence happens, it can either lead to a euphoric discovery or a spaghetti code of syntax. I firmly believe that is the latter. I think everyone should rethink and rediscover the reason that we became teachers. Perhaps it is a drive to make a difference or to inspire others. But I strongly encourage teachers to reevaluate whether or not bringing an undesired variable into the equation is truly the best way to solve it. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Molly Fitzpatrick, and I'm a 16-year-old junior at Broadneck High School. I'm currently taking 3 AP classes. Last year I only took 1, AP Gov, and it was my first one and I loved it, but the workload was overwhelming but still bearable. And then this year I'm taking AP Stat, World, and Environmental Science. World is really difficult, lots of work, but still manageable. But taking 3, these classes are just piling up and piling up and piling up. So when I started my junior year, I had students coming up to me saying, "Oh, you're only taking 3 AP classes?" Telling me I wasn't challenging myself enough and that my 3 APs weren't good enough for them. And that's barely manageable as a 16-year-old to take 3 AP classes. So when When I've met kids in my grade who take 5, 6, or even 8 AP classes, that's a full schedule of AP classes. And really, I can't handle that, and neither can the average student, without some help, obviously. It's important for me that I have a balanced life, and that I get it's important for us to achieve and do our best, but the culture of overachievement has put us in this position to where we are expected to do these amazing things. And that's cool, but I need help. I need more teachers to tutor me and to go over my notes. And I'm also a CRASC leader, so I miss days occasionally, and I have to make up this work after school. And this is more important at my school, unlike South River, Southern, and Arundel, because I don't have a pride hour or a pride period. And so with my with my 3 AP classes, even though it's just 3 APs, I need my teachers, and I need them to make more time, more than just the hour and a half I have them every other day. Under Work to Rule, I lose my tutors, my readers, my makeup work, and frankly, my AP classes. I'm not completely sure what brought us to this point in the TAC negotiations or the county council bargaining, but let's just say that if this was an AP course in negotiating contracts, no one here would be getting a 5 on that AP assessment. I am not willing to allow my education to be a sacrificial lamb in this battle. Regardless of where the money comes from and where it goes, we need to reach an agreement that appropriately acknowledges and compensates our educators for what they do every day. They go above and beyond so much of what they're called for, and I just think that they really deserve that recognition.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Carolyn Williams, and I'm a junior at Glen Burnie High School and a proud member of the Biomedical Allied Health Program. Have a good look at Team Anne Arundel. While we are all coming at this thing from different angles, we are all here with a message that is in support of education, children, schools, and teachers. We are all like the snowflake on that motivational poster, that we can make a blizzard when we all work together. A lovely code red blizzard. When we align our message and we commit to the same goal, go us. One of these larger goals we are sharing is to help students achieve their full potential. Like we are trying to get underprivileged students to take their education seriously and commit to school. How are we promoting these large-scale initiatives like early literacy and enhancing elementary excellence? So the students will invest in their education, take it seriously, and believe in the power of yet. We are doing this by book drives and hashtags, trying to promote this awesome idea because we want to foster a culture of achievement that will replace academic apathy and end the multi-generational cycle of underachievement. My understanding is that these programs are ultimately intended to close the achievement gap. I commend your vision. It's a great game plan. But my question is, how much sense does it make for us to load the program with a message that students truly need to value their education and invest in their futures when we don't appear to value their teachers? Dr. Arlotto, I heard you speak in public several times where you made a big deal about the school system not being the brick or mortar buildings, but it's about the people. Yeah, you said that, and I was paying attention. I loved it. I loved it. Because you were right. We don't learn from the building. We learn from the lessons and the experiences that we get from none other than our teachers. So, as we ask families and communities to make investments in their children and to commit to placing high value on education, let's set the example by valuing and investing in our teachers. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ben Colbrook, and I go to Chesapeake High School, and I'm a senior. And this feels a little bit like deja vu. You see, last May, I spoke at the county budget hearing, advocating for the funding of your budget that included allocating a more appropriate pay raise for my teachers. At the time, I was also trying to get some public speaking experience because I was running for CRASC president. Since you already heard from Scott, you heard how that turned out. But during the process, my SGA advisor spent endless hours helping me to craft my message and refine my speech. I'm a theater kid, so I kind of need a script, and I definitely need to rehearse. In the end, Scott got me by 2 2 votes. It was tragic, okay? But it's cool because his first act as president was to appoint me as his chief of staff. And I found that my capacity to affect change and to be a positive force has not been diminished just because I didn't win an election. All those additional after-school volunteer hours that my advisor spent did not go to waste. The reason why I'm telling you this is simple. Aside from the fact that I wouldn't have been able to get those votes that I didn't without the extra hours of my advisor, the point is you win some and you lose some. When you take a hit, you can come back and try again, because even if you lose the game, you can still win the series. So we have not managed to get a teacher step increase for 5.5 years. Maybe the 6th or 7th time will work, but it's not the time to back down. I didn't back down, and I'm still here, right? I'd like to think that's something I learned from Anne Arundel County Public Schools, but it doesn't seem like it. Maybe we need to learn from our losses and come up with a new game plan as we move forward. I also want to highlight that I brought this issue to the attention of my peers about a month ago after reading about it on social media. It is evident from the number of people here that this need for change represents a social movement in our community. We live in a unique time where communication is at our fingertips and we have the ability to affect change by retweeting. If you are skeptical about the power of social media, remember about a year ago when Dr. Arlato dumped a bucket of ice on his head to raise awareness for ALS? For everyone behind me or watching in the community, CRASC is eager to hear more from the students about how they feel in regard to the teacher pay, the budget, and everything else. So join the dozen or so students who follow us at CRASC_online. The people can be heard, so if you feel passionate about it, don't just troll Facebook or pick on Mr. Mosier on Twitter. Use your data plan and email our elected leaders to make them aware of your concerns. That includes your board members, county council members, bargaining unit representative, or whoever else. Use a little data and be heard. Like Scott said, look what a team of snowflakes can do.
You guys are awesome, and I can't wait to get back in my own classroom tomorrow morning, even though I'll be tired, but you inspire me. Thank you for coming out.